Hello, my name is Charles Matthews, and today we are looking at the question of how to design a building. In order to understand how to design a building, you have to take into consideration a few things. You have to take into consideration what kind of location you want to have. That is, if you don't already have a location picked out, what kind of function the building is to perform, meaning, is it a house? Is it a commercial building? Is it a place of worship? So those are functions that would need to be considered. And next we have aesthetics. That means, how do you want the building to appear to be? How do you want the building to look? So those are the big picture overview considerations that you would need to have. As far as it concerns location, and that in terms of how to design a building, you would want to position and orientate the building in relation to the sun and other climatic factors. Like, where is the sun in the sky during the summer? Where is it during the winter? And at places in between. And that way you can design the lighting for your building based on the location of the sun. You have prevailing winds, meaning what is the general direction of the winds that are in your area, and microclimate site factors, which would include topography, the lay of the lands, the plants that are there, existing wildlife, uh, as well as the type of soils. So after you've considered things related to the location, you consider function, and that by way of the building type. What kind of function is going to be happening in the building? Is it a house? Is it a place of worship? Is it a commercial building? Is it an addition to an existing structure? Is your work going to be a remodel from the inside, or some other type of building by way of new construction? The other thing that we consider is function by way of construction using materials. Are you going to use innovative materials such as various types of plastics or foam? Are you going to use the traditional time-proven materials such as wood, concrete, masonry, or steel? Each of these building materials can then fall into a certain category, which will, during the process of reconciling your building to the codes, uh, you will be able to, at that time, pick both the building type and the construction type. So how does the building function by way of the materials? Now, uh, we'll get into it more in a later video, but if you think of wood, wood is an extremely flexible and in some cases durable material, but it won't stand up very well to fires. And so uh, is your intent to build something fairly cheaply and quickly? Wood would be a good choice for that. If you want to take a little more time but have an increase in durability, you'd want to go with concrete, poured in place concrete, or even precast concrete. If you want a material that is by way of the units that's made in, it's less intensive to create as opposed to concrete, you would use masonry. Now, masonry would be reinforced by steel, especially here in Southern California, uh, but the masonry can be used nonetheless. And you would also have steel construction. Steel construction, extremely strong, especially in tension. And so when you have your building being designed, you can choose to use steel. Steel doesn't stand up very well to extreme heat. So if you're living in an area that could conceivably be damaged by fire, concrete and masonry are going to be your best choices. Also, what is the function by way of the activities? Now, this is all part of what would be called architectural programming, but you need to understand how your building is going to function by way of the activities that will be taking place within the building, such as the spaces. What is going on in the spaces and how close are the spaces to each other? Do they need to be close to each other or far apart? Like public areas are generally separated from private areas, and the private areas tend to be things that are supporting functions of the overall function. So proximity of spaces and activities. What types of things are you wanting to do that should be close to each other? Such as if you had a drive-up pantry, so that when you're unloading your groceries go directly into a pantry. Your pantry should then be close to your kitchen. Neither of those need to necessarily be by, as an example, a bedroom. So that's what we're talking about here. Next, special equipment needs. And this isn't limited to commercial buildings. It would also include things like houses, because in a house, someone may have a special desire for a home theater. And so if they have a home theater, they have specific requirements of what they want to see there. Now, are you trying to outfit it as though you were in an actual theater, where you have chairs that are designed specifically for the viewing experience? Or is it that you just want a better location in your house for whatever it is that you're going to be watching? You're not really designing a room for that. You're just trying to make use of existing rooms. So based on those requirements, you may have special equipment needs. Like another area, if you need a home that is accessible, meaning people who have disabilities, handicaps, are going to be in and living in the house, then you have you may have special equipment needs, like various devices that are out there in order to lift people up, like sitting in a chair and the chair being lifted up a stairway as opposed to someone trying to walk up the stairs. And finally, ventilation. Ventilation is another function that can be incorporated into a building. There are ways, by way of the design of the building, to create natural ventilation so that a person would be able to, in the house, not be running their air conditioning the whole time, as you would in a very hot environment. So we move on from function by way of activities to aesthetics. Now, aesthetics have to do with the way that things look, all right? And the way that things look, it's obviously a visual concern. And so you have to realize that the visual is a primary thing that you have to deal with in the design of a building. I'm personally of the conviction that it is important, if not most important, to be thinking about what a building looks like from the inside. I'm an architect, and that may sound strange, but my concern as an architect is for the person who is experiencing the space. Now, it's not that you neglect the design of the outside, but when you are designing the inside, that's a place where most people are going to be when they interact with the building. And so your budget as a designer and as a homeowner, as a potential client for an architect, your budget should include a substantial amount of resources going to the inside of the space. if you're going to spend a lot of time to make something beautiful on the outside, it should definitely look beautiful on the inside. So aesthetics concern issues of style. Uh, there have been numerous styles throughout all of history, and so which one of those styles seems to fit most with not only the area that you live in, but also what is your overall design intent, and what are the kinds of things that you personally would like to see in the design of your building. What type of materials? Now, the type of materials isn't only a functional consideration, but it also would include stylistic things, because uh, you know, a building made of steel and concrete, it's going to look way different from a building made of wood. And another thing to consider is the historical nature of development, meaning there's a whole history of the reasons why people have designed things the way that they designed them based on the location and the available materials. And so if you're designing things for, let's say, modern day Los Angeles County, uh, you have a wide variety of potential choices of things that you could design toward as far as the style is concerned. But there is a whole historical aspect of the work that you can do. Next, contrast with surroundings or having an analogous relationship with them. Uh, what that means is, do you want your building to stand out and be like a jewel in a setting of gold or silver? Or do you want your building to fit in with its surroundings? If you want it to fit in with its surroundings, that is what is called an analogous relationship. If you don't want it to fit in, you want it to be what's called a complementary relationship. And complementary, it has to do with complementary colors, especially if you think of at Christmas time, the colors that people see most often are red and green. Those are complementary colors. They're totally different colors, though. And so complementary relationships are very much more difficult to do well than analogous relationships between buildings. So what type of relationship do you want your building to have design-wise with the buildings that are surrounding it? Aesthetics have to also do with space. Now, space, we're not talking about the final frontier. What we are talking about is if a person has two eyes and their depth perception is working as a result of their two eyes, they can perceive things in 3 dimensions. Now, there was a whole historical movement regarding space, and space being the issue as far as what architecture was to be about. And so if space is your consideration, do you want the design of the space to be reflective of complexity or simplicity? If it's complexity, it can have all sorts of different types of dynamic forms and shapes. Or if you want it to be simplicity, it would respond to various flows of space from one area to another, setting up rhythms at times between large to small and those kinds of situations. So that has to do with aesthetics. And finally, something that I call soul-centric. It has to do with the experience of a person as they are occupying your space. And a church should definitely be designed differently from a theme park, as an example, because the experience of a person in a church should be different from that of a person going to a theme park. Uh, it varies based on what kind of religion you're talking about, but there is going to be some type of a difference there. What way does being in the environment affect a person physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? And I say this based on observational studies of the way that people respond in different environments, where a person in a blue room is going to respond differently than a person in a bright red room. It provides a different kind of emotional reaction based on the sensory stimuli that the person encounters. So, that being the case, how is it that you would want the person who is in the space to react and respond? Well, these are all questions that an architect would be able to help you to answer and to help you design. And so when I say this video is about how to design a building, we're not getting into the nitty-gritty details of how do you choose one one texture over another, or one detail over another, or how tall a seat should be. We're looking at this from the questions that a person would need to answer from a big picture perspective in order to accomplish these things. Schematic design is one of the things that you would have to do as far as a how-to is concerned. So let's look at that. The big picture here is the process that an architect or a designer would use in order to design a building or a new house addition or a tenant improvement. The architect or designer would start off with schematic design, where he would be completing iterations. Now, iteration basically means a cycle. It's a process that can happen again and again and again. And just as a footnote, whenever a person is doing a custom design, and especially an original creative custom design, there is no end to the number of designs and iterations that a person could have. There is no end to that. Why? I think it's because we have imaginations that are built and designed to have an aspect of infinitude to them. And so there's always another creative type solution that a person could have. So ultimately, the number of iterations that are completed in a design project are based on the amount of time or the amount of money that a person has. It is obvious that uh, things start and things end. People's lives begin and they end. And so because of this, there is a limited amount of time that a person could have in doing iterations of designs. And so because of that, iterations have to be based on a budget, and they have to be based on a time to completion. Otherwise, it could just continue forever, literally. So iterations of research, formal analysis, and form integration. Research has to do with what are the types of things that are going to be happening in the space. What are various types of solutions that people have used throughout history or through using technology. Formal analysis. Formal analysis would have to do with the way that that spaces are actually put together, and form integration. Form integration would concern how do you bring all of these things together. The formal analysis, it can be related to anything, any aspect of whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. The whole point, though, of this exercise is you want to realize your functional goals. You want to realize your aesthetic goals. And so you do that by way of this process of design iterations. And so you have research, you have analysis, you have integration. It's a cycle. Basically, uh, you're trying to see what works, and if it doesn't work, why does it not work? So you do this, it gets reviewed, and different aspects of it can be approved or scheduled for more iterations, and it just keeps on going. I personally like to start off with, especially in a very high design or especially custom situation, I like to start off with 3 possible extreme design considerations. Okay, and by extreme, it doesn't mean that the solution is going to be extreme, but conceptually, the way that a person's work could be addressed, uh, it, it needs to go toward extremes so that you have an area from which you can withdraw. It's the whole idea of going too far and then coming back. Uh, and the going too far part is uh, it's used in order for a designer to spark their imagination. And so you take something as super far as it can go in one area, like you want to be, uh, let's say a person wanted a design of something that's creative and has to do with theme parks, as an example, just coming to mind. You would want to push the design as far as you can in the limited amount of time that you have for the design iteration, and say, you know what, that's a $5 million budget. I need something more like $300,000. So let's scale it way back. All right. If you start out looking at things uh, from a smaller level and then trying to get large, it doesn't tend to work that way. You can it becomes a matter of adding things like, well, do you want this house to have shutters or not? Versus having a more comprehensive, formal design. So you go through that process. You start with three different extremes. So if theme parks is on one side, a museum or a church may be on the other, as far as a solution to a specific design problem. And if you have 3 of these design types, usually a person would be able to say, I like this one, I don't like those 2, and then you can begin to hone in on whatever specific design you like. Now, this is, of course, in a high design arena. This is not in a standard situation where you have, let's say you have someone just needs a few walls built. That is not the arena that you necessarily try to get all the high design in. Why? It's going to be a waste of your time, and it's going to be a waste of your client's time. They don't want to have to go through the high design in order to just put a couple of walls up. So after schematic design is finished, you have other phases. Next would be design development, where you're refining more and more what your design strategy is. After approval of design development, the construction drawings and construction documents are completed. You get approval from governing agencies after you submit the drawings and documents. You finally, from them, obtain a building permit stamp, and based on where you're located in the country, you'd eventually get a certificate of occupancy, which would say the city or the governing authorities has approved your building in order to be built, and not just built by way of the permit, but occupied by way of the certificate of occupancy.
Hi, this is Charles Matthews. Just wanted to say thanks for watching the video. If you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to leave those below. Visit our website at grizzlybeararchitecture.com. This video is one in a series of videos that address various issues surrounding architecture and our practice of architecture and grizzly bear architecture. And if you have any thoughts or comments, I'd really appreciate those. Thanks.